Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
Okay.
Jeffrey Epstein is one of those names that broke the internet so hard that nobody can agree on what the man actually was. Half the world thinks he was the final boss of elite blackmail. The other half says he was something much simpler, just a rich degenerate with powerful friends and a legal system that moves slower than a DMV line in Mississippi. Because somewhere between the private jets, the underage massage pyramid, the mysterious death, and 3.5 million pages of government files, Jeffrey Epstein stopped being a person. He became a myth. FBI, open up! Now you have two competing versions floating around the internet. There is Epstein the man, the documented predator with a trafficking operation that court records, victim testimony, and police reports have already laid out in painful detail. And then there is Epstein the myth, the alleged intelligence asset who supposedly ran a global blackmail network with hidden cameras, compromat tapes, and enough secrets to make half the ruling class sweat through their tailored suits. So today, we are going to walk through both versions.
Okay, first of all, ain't nobody talking while I'm talking, so shut the up.
Jeffrey Epstein was born in 1953 to a working-class family in the Seagate neighborhood near Coney Island. His father worked for the Parks Department and his mother was a school aide. Nothing about the situation suggested that one day this kid would be flying around the world with billionaires and politicians. Young Epstein skipped grades and graduated high school early. He briefly attended Cooper Union and later NYU, but never finished either program. No degree, no credentials, just a guy who was good with numbers and apparently even better at convincing rich people that he belonged in their circle. In the mid-70s, he landed a teaching job at the Dalton School in Manhattan. Now, Dalton is not your average public school. It is one of those elite prep academies where the tuition costs more than some people's mortgage, and the parents include hedge fund managers, diplomats, and Wall Street executives. Epstein had no teaching certification and no college degree, but somehow he was hired to teach math and physics anyway. That job turned out to be the real education. Because Dalton was not just a school, it was a networking event with lockers. By 1976, Epstein had charmed his way into Wall Street where he joined the investment bank Bear Stearns. Within a few years, he climbed from junior assistant to limited partner territory, which is the kind of promotion that usually requires either genius-level performance or a suspicious amount of powerful friends. Eventually, he left Bear Stearns under murky circumstances involving a questionable loan situation. But by then, he had already learned the most important lesson of high finance. Money moves where relationships go. In the early 80s, Epstein launched his own wealth management operation, which specialized in handling the fortunes of extremely rich clients. The most important of those clients was Leslie Wexner, the billionaire founder of Victoria's Secret. Wexner trusted Epstein so much that he gave him power of attorney over huge portions of his financial empire. That level of access is almost unheard of in the billionaire world, where most people guard their money like dragons sitting on gold piles. Suddenly, Epstein was not just another financier. He was a man who managed the money of the rich while living like one of them. The official story of Epstein's crimes started unraveling in Palm Beach in 2005 when a 14-year-old girl told police that a wealthy man had paid her $300 for what was supposed to be a massage. What investigators discovered next was not a misunderstanding. It was a system. Young girls were recruited to visit Epstein's mansion under the pretense of giving massages. Once inside, the situation would escalate into sexual abuse. The girls were paid $200 or $300 and then encouraged to recruit other girls for the same arrangement. It was basically a pyramid scheme, but with human beings instead of protein shakes. Police eventually identified more than 36 victims during the Palm Beach investigation alone. Most of them were between 14 and 17 years old. Some were runaways or came from unstable homes. Others were simply teenagers who thought they were walking into an easy job. And running the recruitment operation beside Epstein was a woman named Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell was not just a girlfriend or assistant. She acted as a social coordinator, recruiter, and gatekeeper who helped maintain the strange ecosystem around Epstein's properties. If Epstein was the banker of the operation, Maxwell was the human resources department. The locations themselves became part of the mythology. There was the Palm Beach mansion where many of the early crimes took place. There was the Manhattan townhouse filled with art, surveillance equipment, and a bizarre collection of labeled CDs reportedly containing photographs of young women. And then there was Little St. James, the private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands where Epstein hosted guests, flew in visitors on his private jet, and allegedly continued the same pattern of abuse that had been documented in Florida. Over the years, the island became the centerpiece of the scandal. Stories about strange buildings, hidden cameras, and secret rooms spread across the internet like wildfire. But even before the mythology took over, something very real happened in the legal system. In 2008, Epstein reached a controversial non-prosecution agreement with federal prosecutors. Instead of facing the kind of federal charges that could have put him behind bars for decades, he pleaded guilty to 2 state-level charges in Florida. The sentence was 18 months. He served about 13. And because the deal included immunity for potential co-conspirators, many of the people connected to the case were never prosecuted at all. By 2019, Jeffrey Epstein's strange little empire was finally catching up with him. A federal investigation reopened the case after journalists dug through the Palm Beach files and realized just how generous that 2008 deal had been. Suddenly, the same man who once walked out of jail with work release privileges was facing federal sex trafficking charges. On July 6th of that year, Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey after flying in from Paris. Inside his luggage, investigators reportedly found $70,000 in cash, loose diamonds, and a fake Austrian passport that looked like something a Bond villain might keep in his sock drawer. The charges were serious this time. Federal prosecutors accused him of running a trafficking operation that brought underage girls to his homes in New York and Florida for sexual exploitation. Bail was denied, and Epstein was placed inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. In July, Epstein was found in his cell with marks around his neck in what was initially reported as a possible suicide attempt. He was placed on suicide watch for observation. Then a few days later, he was removed from suicide watch and returned to a regular cell unit. On August 10, 2019, guards discovered Jeffrey Epstein dead in his cell. The official ruling was suicide by hanging, and the circumstances surrounding that death read like a checklist of everything that could possibly go wrong in a high-profile detention facility. The guards assigned to watch the unit reportedly fell asleep and later falsified their logs. Security cameras outside the area malfunctioned. Epstein was supposed to have a cellmate, but was alone that night. The broken bone in his neck sparked debate among medical examiners about whether the injuries looked consistent with suicide or something more suspicious. Within hours, the internet exploded, and no one accepted that Epstein unalived himself. Memes started spreading faster than investigators could release official statements. Late-night hosts joked about it. Politicians awkwardly acknowledged it in interviews. Even random news anchors started dropping the phrase like a cultural inside joke. The government eventually conducted investigations into the jail failures and concluded that Epstein had indeed taken his own life while guards neglected their duties. But by then, the damage to public trust had already been done. But the legend of Jeffrey Epstein was about to become much bigger than the man himself. Soon, Jeffrey Epstein was not just a wealthy criminal with powerful friends. He was the central operator of a massive blackmail network designed to control the global elite. According to the theory, the private island was not just a playground for rich degenerates, it was a recording studio for compromise. Hidden cameras, Secret rooms, compromising footage of politicians and billionaires doing things they would never want the public to see. The alleged purpose was simple: get the powerful people into compromising situations and then quietly collect the leverage. Some versions of the theory say Epstein worked for intelligence agencies. The most popular rumor claims he was connected to Mossad through the family of Ghislaine Maxwell, whose father, Robert Maxwell, had long been rumored to have intelligence ties. Others claim the operation involved American agencies. Still others say it was just Epstein freelancing his way into the most expensive blackmail scheme in history. And honestly, it is not hard to see why people believe it. The man had a private island with strange buildings. He had connections to billionaires, politicians, and royalty. He funded scientific projects and cultivated relationships with academics. His homes reportedly had surveillance systems everywhere. If you handed that plot to a Hollywood screenwriter, they would probably say it sounds a little unrealistic. But when the US government released more than 3 million pages of Epstein-related documents in 2026, the result was almost anticlimactic. There were flight logs, emails, victim testimonies, financial records, but no smoking gun client list proving a global blackmail empire. No secret master document revealing that half the world's leaders had been compromised on tape, which created a strange situation. The official record confirmed that Epstein ran a horrifying trafficking operation that victimized hundreds of young women. But the mythical version of Epstein the puppet master remained. So in the end, Jeffrey Epstein exists in two different realities. In one reality, he is exactly what the court records say he was: a wealthy predator who used money, connections, and legal loopholes to build a trafficking pyramid that somehow operated in plain sight for decades. In the other reality, he is a broker of secrets who turned the private sins of the powerful into political leverage.
Looks like we the only two people with sense in this whole room. Just you and me. Just you and me.